Okay, I'm here with Michael Jans, insurance industry guru for a long time. You know, people come and go in this industry, but you've had some staying power. You've had multiple successes in different arenas, all the way from an agency to some technology to advisory. And what we're talking about here today is just we're gonna absorb Michael's wealth of experience and knowledge as much as possible because you are an expensive guy to get advice from. No, but I mean, if your advice is worth a ton, right? So
Um, yeah, well, I hope so. I
it
do
is.
hope so. But I will say this. Yeah, I mean, in general, maybe I'm kind of one of the expensive guys. And
Worth every
perhaps
penny.
maybe you earn that after not years but decades of delivering
You do.
marketing and strategy advice. But that being said, between you and me and your listeners, any single question you got, I'll answer it fully, completely, truthfully, honestly, to the best of my knowledge.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why we want you here, right? Because there's these opportunities that we have as insurance agency owners to get information and kind of download as much as possible. And so the reason that we have Michael here today is to draw off of his decades of experience in the insurance industry and help our agents and our listeners, help them avoid some of the stumbling blocks, leap to new successes and new heights. And so we just want to have a conversation. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, so people that maybe aren't familiar with you can get a little bit
Happy
of
to.
background.
Okay, yeah, happy to. So let me do the sort of chronological bio really quickly,
Yeah.
and then maybe some other stuff. So I started in this industry like so many people, kind of by accident. I was hired to kind of turn around. I'd had management experience prior to this, and so I had been hired to turn around some of the affiliates of the national PIA, the professional insurance agents on the West Coast. That was a long time ago. So I was the CEO of the PIA affiliates on the West Coast for a few years. And it really was that. It was my experience there that they were struggling when I grabbed the reins of leadership there. They were struggling with sales. Membership was down. Educational sales were down. Errors and omission sales were down. And at that point, we're between 25 and 30 years ago, sales and marketing were not my area of expertise. I had been a nonprofit manager prior to that. Yeah, and so I turned to the obvious place, my members, and I said, "What do you do to grow?" And frankly, the answers that I got back were stunningly not helpful. I got answers like, "Well, Michael, we've been around since 1937," and I'm thinking, "Hey, that's not going to help me," or "We take really good care of our customers."
Yeah.
And I thought, like, who doesn't? I was like, "Don't you realize that your association is in absolute trouble here?" And so at that point, I had been introduced. I hired a guy by the name of Jim Cecil to be a keynote speaker at the first convention of the association. He was the top-rated speaker for Jay Abraham's $25,000 marketing boot camp. $25,000 was a lot of money back, this is 27, 28 years ago. So, well, I not only fell in love with Jim's, his enthusiasm and message, but also, the content of what he was sharing. And so I said, "Hey, Jim, I know everybody's out there taking notes, but I'm here to say, I want what's in your brain." And so he's really generous with me, and he shared with me, tapes, and this is before CDs, notebooks of Jay Abraham and Gary Halbert and Dan Kennedy, and then introduced me to these people, and then I studied personally with some of the best marketers in the country and the best copywriters in the country, and we really turned that affiliate of the PIA around. So we had the fastest growing E&O market, the fastest growing CIC educational series of classes. We doubled that in 18 months. I was chosen as Rookie of the Year because our membership was the fastest growing in the country. And so then I realized, you know what? There's a lot to be said about this industry, but it doesn't have a really good track record of what I call marketing.
Yeah.
We're pretty good at sales and production, but not that good at marketing. And so I then launched Insurance Profit Systems, which was designed to teach and deliver marketing systems and strategies to insurance agents. And then through that, our flagship program a few years later was our coaching program, the Quantum Club. It was, at that point, it was by far the largest marketing coaching company in the industry. We had 500-600 members. We get 400 or 500 people showing up at our annual boot camps. And then I morphed to that. I saw we had already been engaged in some technology.
Yeah.
And so I then launched my third InsurTech Agency Revolution, which was, the dream was integrate with the agency management systems and use it to automatically trigger campaigns that could be customized and delivered personally when people had events that showed up in the agency management system, whatever it was, from a birthday to a claim to a renewal.
Yeah.
And so we launched that. It's been about a dozen years or so, and I was the CEO of Agency Revolution for about 8 years. I sold it. We're getting close to 5 years ago to a private equity firm. And now for the last 4 or so years, I essentially have been working individually with clients, typically agents, fast growth agents that are really devoted to scaling. And then my other, the other group in my portfolio tend to be InsurTechs because
Sure.
I ran one.
Yeah.
And like every new business, they struggle and suffer. And so those that want to scale, often they might end up in my portfolio. So right now, my key focus, besides working individually with clients, is my mastermind group, where we bring together some of the best insurepreneurs in the industry to have meaningful conversations about growth and about the trends and forces that are affecting the industry. And then I also, as you know, I host the Connected Insurance podcast for my listeners and followers.
That's very cool. So your strategy is marketing, which at our agency that we used to own, that's what I did. I was the marketing guy. Mm-hmm. And I always, I always kind of paralleled marketing at an insurance agency to like a blood draw, maybe, right? Like you might miss the vein a few times, but boy, once you hit it, like sit back and get ready to grow, right? Because once the source of success starts coming into you, then for now at least what's working, and you can grow that, you can scale it, you can lay more into it, and you can go. So of the years and years that you've been doing this, tell me about the attributes or the traits of agencies that get to that fast growing pace.
Okay.
What are they?
There are a couple of things. One of them is this is a game changer. I look back at some of my clients who have 10x or more. An Ellie Kaplansky in Massachusetts, or a Mike Matheson in Colorado, or a Jamie Brown in Maryland, and so on and so forth. Agencies that have grown substantially in size, like literally 10x or more. And there is a common characteristic among them, which it's not uncommon for them to say, I haven't written an insurance policy for 15 or 20 years or more.
Yep.
Where their real focus was to move from being a technician, which is a valuable job, to being a producer, or being an insurance person, to being what I call an insurepreneur, somebody whose primary focus is on being an entrepreneur, building a business that's based upon repeatable systems, and focusing those systems on what really matters most. So number one is that transition from technician to insurepreneur. Number two is then using using that new time. I mean, typically what happens is in a lot of agencies is the principal's the primary producer, right? I mean,
Right.
in the smaller agency, that's very, very common, and it has a downside to it. It has an upside. They're motivated. They're going to build that book of business, and then boom, they hit their ceiling. It tops out. The model tops out. The production tops out. Leadership doesn't. Production tops out. Marketing doesn't. And so,
right.
Yes, there's that switch. But now, okay, I'm not writing insurance policies anymore, and not everybody does that 100%. There's a transitional period.
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't happen like Tuesday I'm a producer, Wednesday I'm an insurepreneur. There's a transitional period. But then, so if I'm not actually engaged in the production of insurance, like any more than, let's say, somebody owns a car repair shop, maybe he's not actually engaged in fixing an engine. Well, now what does he do? Well, ideally, you want to focus on the systems that build the business. And I'll allude to Drucker's comment from probably 50 years ago, maybe, that essentially he said that, in fact, I think I have that quote in front of me because I delivered a presentation recently. Because its purpose is to create a customer, the business enterprise has two and only these two basic functions: marketing and innovation. Yeah. Marketing and innovation produce results. All the rest are costs. Yeah. And by his definition, which I really subscribe to, marketing really is everything about that company from the customer's point of view. It's marketing is good marketing. Great marketing is about creating meaningful relationships that are deep, where both parties are really deeply satisfied. And so, that's number one, is establishing the agency in the marketplace in such a manner that people reach out because they want to be part of that agency. They don't reach out because they want a free quote.
Right.
And then innovation in Drucker's definition is that which creates value. It's really that which justifies extracting value from the marketplace. And so, and now, I think in this phase of the evolution of the agency system, now more than ever, agents really need to learn to create value at the retail level, and not think of themselves as merely a pass-through for value that's created at the carrier level.
Sure. Well, and that's what we tried to do with our agency. I mean, the things that you're saying, like, it's like striking home to me, because we tried to create an ecosystem of support for our clients, where you come and do business with us, you've got access to these other resources. And actually, those resources we made available to people whether they did business with us or not. Right. And they came to us, I think, oftentimes because of the ecosystem of support that we supplied, going, we're not just here to sell you an insurance policy, we're here to support your business, because we were primarily a business to business insurance agency. So we insured, mostly business customers, but actually pretty much all business customers. But we tried to support them in their business. So that way, and there was lots of things that we did, but that
reminds me of another example. Was a member of my mastermind group, Mark Peterson of Wisconsin, who he came to one workshop that I did on content marketing. Boom. And then I didn't talk to him for a year or more. And I said, "How's it going?" He said, 30% growth. So then I stayed in touch with them over the last 4 years, more than 30% growth in that niche every single year.
Wow.
And the big difference was a transition really from being an insurance agency to being a problem solver. And so he picked a niche, his niche, that they'd already had. They were arborists in Wisconsin. And he asked himself, and he asked them, what kind of problems do they have? They don't, it's not that they're thinking about insurance most of the time. They're thinking about their arborist business most of the time. So he built a funnel with top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel content, and delivers real value to arborists in many cases that has, in many cases, has absolutely nothing to do with insurance. It has to do with being successful and providing a path and plan for success. And of course, safety is always an issue, and insurance is always an issue. And he brings them in those issues in when it's appropriate, when it's important. But he's got, just like a good marketer, right? Why should I pay attention to you? I don't even know you. Boom. Oh, you've got something interesting. A lead magnet, we would call it in the marketing industry. And people raise their hand, they get in the funnel, and they get nurtured, and they get value, and they want to get closer. And then they feel, they see, there's a community of others that are engaged in this, and they become deeply involved. They might go to a conference. He hosts a conference. I think it's twice a year. They're like 2 days long, and people come and they learn about how to be successful. And of course, they become his insurance clients.
Right. Exactly. Well, and so just real briefly, because I want to cover a couple other things too, if we can. But real briefly, if let's say that there's an agent listening, and maybe they don't have that marketing funnel set up, or they don't have any kind of, they're just selling insurance, right? Hey, do you want a free quote? How do I get from there to what you're talking about?
That's a great question. And it's step one. I really consider to be the most overlooked step that there is, and it's unfortunate. And that is pick your customer. It's a decision, customer selection is a decision that you're going to live with for a long, long time. And so often people do it chaotically and randomly and haphazardly, and it really should be done with care and thought. And so you want to be asking yourselves, in general, I'll give you a few observations I have about customer selection. In general, it serves the agent well to go up market more than it does generally to go down market. There's some outliers on that, but in general, revenue per relationship will matter. In general, in the agency system, we want to be engaged with customers who value the agency system. Okay. Yeah. And so, one of the criteria, it seems, for those who value the agency system is that they have things that need to be protected. It's that in our channel, if you compare our channel to the direct channel, like Geico, or, let's say the InsurTech channel, where it's like the pure digital channel. They have a demographic. They're very clear on who their demographic is. Yeah. And obviously the directs have been extremely successful, growing market share with the demographic that is really well suited for them. Who's well suited for the agent? We're not the cheapest channel around. Yeah. You can go to AM Best and do your math on it. I have. We're not the cheapest channel around. So we don't want to sell on price for lots of reasons. And so we want people who care about, actually care what insurance does, and are inclined to appreciate the fact that because it's complicated, and particularly, again, this is an argument for going upscale because it tends to get more complicated. They value the expertise, they value the advocacy, they value the education that comes from relationship. So number one, customer selection. You're going to live with that decision for a long time, and it's a strategic decision that you have to make. So, yeah, going upscale, making sure that you're focusing on those who appreciate what it is that we do. Obviously, if you're going to be serious about a market, then it's a market. You want to make sure it's a market that you want to spend time with. That these are people that you also want to be in relationship, and you want your business to be in relationship. And then, so that's number one, is customer selection. Who do I want? Yeah. Then after that, now, we begin to look at the at the stages of marketing, right? And so the model that I use in working with my clients is a 4-stage marketing model built on the acronym ACOR, ACOR, which stands for the 4 stages of relationship between the agency and the customer. And so number 1, A stands for attract. So now we're going to talk about, how do we attract this customer that we want into our funnel? C stands for convert. Now, once they're in the funnel and they've gone through awareness and evaluation and decision, boom, we're probably going to have a conversation with them. Somebody on our team is, and we convert them. We convert them from being a prospect into being a buyer. And then we move to O, optimize. So now we have a new customer. We want to optimize that relationship and make it as rich and deep as possible with as many policies per customer as possible. And there are lots of reasons for that, financial and psychological. And then R, we want to retain them as long as possible because frankly, that's where the wealth is, right? Yep. It's the last half of that formula is all about customer lifetime value, and we're shooting for maximum customer lifetime value. The first part of the formula, and that's where the wealth is. So if you want high margins and longevity of the development of that book of business, then the small investments you make into your existing customer relationships generally return in multiples. And I've got the math and the spreadsheets that can show that. The first part of the formula, A and C, is really about customer acquisition or the cost of customer acquisition. And there, the risk is higher. There's very little risk in nurturing your existing book of business, okay? But there's risk in going out into the marketplace. Marketing and advertising, these are higher risk parts of, occupations. And so you want to be smart. It's a skill you want to cultivate. It's a skill you want to develop. You want to do your math. Ultimately, you want to be monitoring your metrics. So where are my leads coming from? What's the cost per lead? What's my messaging? How can I tweak it? And all that kind of jazz. So you get really, really good at that. But then a lot of agencies really they kind of ignore even the C part of the formula. Okay, I got some inbound phone calls, and maybe we've got 5 people potentially that can close them on the inbound. Maybe it's Frank and Nancy and Bob and so on and so forth. And most agency principals, they don't know what Frank's closing ratio is, or Sally's, or Bob's, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of like having a basketball team, and you're the coach and you're trying to win each game, but you have no idea what the players are actually doing. And so there is a different skill set at each of those 4 stages, but they're all learnable. And they all ideally become very congruent. What you end up building there is a customer journey from A to C to O to R, where they go from being a stranger and a lead to being a raving fan that delivers maximum customer lifetime value. And part of that value is that they refer their friends and their colleagues, which is the best cost of customer acquisition you can ever get.
Right. Well, and to kind of echo what you're saying here, I know I keep going back and forth with our experience, but I think it's pretty relevant, is we had different people in our agency, and we tried to hire people that we wanted to work with. And then once we hired them, stick them in and see what their skill set is, so that way we can build a position around them. And what we ended up with was, when somebody calls in, they talk to this person. And then when they call back and they have questions, this other person handles them. And when they call back and they've got, their need to be presented with the quote, or they're ready to buy, they talk to this other person. And we had specific people within our agency that customers would talk to based on where they were at in our funnel. And it worked really, really well for us. What do you think the biggest reason for either stalling out growth wise or failing completely as an agent? What are the factors that contribute to those two things?
Let me take the first part of that question. Stalling out. The biggest reason, I guess there are two big reasons. Number one is the model tops out, and so that's an issue that I have to deal with a lot. So here's an example. A client of mine in Florida. His agency is less than 2 years old. I mean, now maybe 19 months because I saw him last month. It was 18 months. He's got $1 million book of business. Okay, $1 million in income. And a really good team of professionals around him, support people, account execs, CSR kind of, professional support people. Boom. Now what's he going to do, to get to the next million? Is he going to keep, is he going to duplicate himself? So the model, this is where, well, I have this a progressive model of growth I call the 5 levels of the modern insurance agency. This is typically level 1, where agencies get stuck because the producers or the principal is the producer and the model tops out. That's number 1. Number 2, the failure option. There are a lot of reasons not to be selling on price. Price shoppers never ever give maximum customer lifetime value, and your goal has to be maximum customer lifetime value. You don't want them. Price shoppers tend to squeeze your margins and give you less resources to then invest in the business to grow it. And frankly, if you're going head to head against other channels, we're not the cheapest. So why do that? Getting out of the commodity mindset is a critical one. The third one, I would say, is just not knowing what to do, is not having a clear path and plan that shows somebody, like, for example, in my model, level 1 through 5, if I'm on level 2, which is a pretty good place to be, what do I need to do exactly to get to level 3, which is very different than if you're a level 3 agency and want to know, what do I need to do exactly to get to level 4? So some of it has to do with really understanding, what are our capabilities? What are the growth capabilities that we've got in the biz right now? And what new ones do we need to add in order to do something that affects those 4 drivers of organic growth? Right. How can we attract more people? How can we increase our conversion rate? How can we, get more policies and more revenue per customer? And how can we keep them longer? Those are the 4 things that we want to keep. So I would say, the model topping out, and getting out of the commodity. Never just totally walk away from selling on price and not selling a commodity. Really, it's really about engaging in relationships and having a path and plan that simply shows you the next thing that you should do.
So if there's, we've kind of been jumping around and talking a little bit to agents that are just starting off and agents that have an established agency and maybe they're stuck and they're looking for that next level of growth. So if I'm an agent that's just starting off and I'm going around asking friends, family, connections, colleagues, former colleagues, whatever, I'm asking them, can I get you a quote on your insurance? That's the wrong way to start an agency. I mean, maybe part of that, right?
I mean, there's a saying in tech and software, that if you want to scale, then you have to do some of the things that don't scale, right?
Right.
So there's an element of manual labor. I don't want to dismiss the guy who's like, hey, I got a new agency and I need income in order to justify this venture I've got, this risk I've put my family in. And so, it's like, am I going to get my friends and family? Yeah, it's, sure. Not a bad place to start. But at some point, so let's take my, the super producer example I talked about, a moment ago with $1 million book of business. He's a niche player.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows he's got, basically three very related niches. He knows what they think, he knows what they feel, he knows what their problems are. He knows how to relate to them, and he can solve their problems. So what we're working on now is, one, modifying the model so he's not the only producer, but also, and this is a critical element. I think this is usable for every single person who's listening. We know that one of the great strengths of the independent agency system is the expertise that we have. We've got real people with real knowledge that can help real people. So we're experts, and we take some pride in sharing that expertise or using that expertise to help that customer. In order to scale and get to the next level, there's a sort of a simple little, for want of a better word, I'll call it a trick, which is to turn that inside out, to take that expertise and to package it in an elegant way and to deliver real value to the marketplace, to the niche in such a way that they appreciate and value relationship with you the first time they ever meet you. That you've got like the downloadable, 8 things every arborist must know to be successful, right?
Wow. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I want that now. And so the respect, the trust, and the loyalty that often comes years later or after the sale, that respect and trust and loyalty can actually happen in the marketplace before their customers. In fact, in order to scale, we need more than leads. I mean, yeah, we want inbound leads, but where do they come from? Well, they come from this top of the funnel followers who are beginning to pay attention to us and consume our value. And then they move their way through that funnel until the point they go, yeah, I want in. This is the place to be. I feel like I'm at home.
Sure. If you could give one, and I mean, I know we've got a lot, and maybe the answer already lies within the last half hour.
Oh, you want the one secret?
Well, not the one secret. I want the one piece of advice. If you could ingrain into agency owners' brains one thing, maybe one download, what would that be?
That would be. I'll tell a little story just to lead up to it. A former client of mine, Umberto Fedeli, owned or owns probably the largest single owner agency in the United States. And I invited him to one of my boot camps. Again, I was like 10 years ago. Umberto chartered a plane, flew out for to present to us for an hour and a half, and I got to spend a little bit of time with him, and he flew back, and people said, what's the big thing? What's the one thing, right? Yeah. And essentially what he said was, don't be like an insurance agency. And I think essentially what he was saying was, don't be like everybody else. Don't be a commodity. Find ways to deliver proprietary value that's almost uncopyable. That's my level 5, where real innovation comes in. So what I would say, so basically said, don't be an insurance agent. And so what I would say is be an insurerpreneur. Be in the insurance industry, but be committed to building a great business, building a world-class business, and be committed to building a business that has a genuine impact in the world. I have, if we have a minute, I've got my little, I have a little poster, a digital poster called "I'm an Insurerpreneur." Sure. And these are what I consider to be the characteristics of a great insurerpreneur. One is they strive to have the courage to leave the rest of the industry behind. So indeed, a real innovator is going to create something that, yeah, it's an agency, but boy, it looks and feels different than others. Yeah. The next one is to put strategy in front of tactics. Strategy means answering those 2 or 3 really big questions. Where are we going to play? Like, who's our customer and how are we going to win? What are we going to do that's distinctive? And instead of like chasing every shiny new thing and, like, oh, maybe that's my solution or that's my solution. Yeah, maybe they are, but they'll be turbocharged if you've got a strategy that really makes, that aligns all of the behaviors in your agency. Next one is to never sell on price. We've talked about that. Next one is to earn the deepest loyalty because the money is in the relationship. Again, I got spreadsheets that'll show that. The next one is to embrace and master modern tools. This is an industry right now that is being flooded with technology that are power tools. Not every one, but to understand which tools. It's like Teresa and I did some remodeling when we moved here into the desert. If my contractor showed up with a handsaw and a hammer, it would have been like, no, man, you're the wrong guy for the job. I want people showing up with like contemporary tools that not only get the job done more quickly, but get it done more elegantly. Yeah. And so we need to be tech forward. We need to be tech comfortable. Next one is the insurepreneur wants to protect people and change lives. So it really has to do with like being really clear why we are in this business and aligning the team around values that genuinely matter. Next one's really related to that, making it a better world, right? That's, we can't just be in this for us. That has long-term negative consequences. Yeah. To treat the team like champions, because we know that every great entrepreneur knows they don't get there by themselves. They need a team of people who are really talented. So making a commitment to attracting and retaining and managing and growing talent. Next to last, build business and marketing systems to get my agency to the next level. So it really is about building systems. And then finally, the insurepreneur gets stuff done. And so they tend to be pretty obsessive about being responsible for the change and making it happen.
For sure, and that's the systems and processes part. So it's warming me hearing all this stuff that you're saying, Michael, because it's reminding me of because we did a lot of stuff in our agency, right? And some of it led to success, some of it was a waste of time. And that's with anything, but the stuff that led to success, it's just I'm having all these examples pop into my head of things that we did that are reflecting, upon what you're saying right now. And so, to anybody out there that's listening, this is legitimate advice. This is for real. And if you want to grow your agency, you want to get to the next level, or you want to get unstuck, this is the advice to listen to right here. And my wife and I were a team. We're lucky that we work together like that in our agency. And I was on sales, and she was systems and processes. And she would sit behind me for days, and she would write down exactly what I did. If there was a line that I said that led to, because I was, I guess I've got the mixture, I'm blessed in some natural abilities and some other things that lead me to have success in sales and closing and stuff like that. And so she would listen for things I would say right before I took a down payment, or things that I would, talk to the customer about, and she would write all that stuff down. And then she went back and she created a manual, and we handed that manual to every producer that we ever hired of, you want to close a deal? This is a line you could say. This is a line you could say. Here's the process of taking them through, here's step A, step B. And so the system and process of what you're saying, to be able to duplicate that for scalability is so key, so that marketing funnel can keep working for you and keep growing and growing and growing. I'm excited. Tell me about the agents, because there's some people listening that go, I want Michael Jans to be my agency's coach. What kind of agency? Tell me the profile of the agency that you work with, because right, like you're starting off, you got to grind through some of that on your own and get up and running. And then you can start to, with scale comes more opportunity, more resources. Yeah. and you're one of those resources that come with a little bit of scale. Tell me about the size of agency that you generally speaking work with.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I said earlier, I share. I'm at the point in my career here where I feel like I can just share openly, and I want to. I want to. I want to. Before I step out of this, I want to give as much wisdom and insight as I possibly can. So on the free side, I have a newsletter that I publish every single week. It's 5 minutes, and in it I share a marketing tip. I share 2 quotes that I think are important. Often they come from conversations I have with other industry leaders, and 3 free resources. And so if people are interested in that, email me, and we can talk about that here when we're at the end. When I work individually with clients, they do tend to be a little bit bigger, just because, they're all interesting to me, but they do tend to be a little bit bigger. They're able to afford, the fees that we charge. And I do that in 2 ways. Occasionally work with them one at a time, but generally with agencies, they first need to be members of my mastermind group, and then from them, I identify clients to work with privately. Mastermind group, they're largely comprised of some really some of the most fascinating, innovative, some of the fastest growing agencies in the country. Like some we talked about earlier. Mike Matheson started with me in that group. Been a while, but he started with $6 million in premium. Now he's hitting $100 million in premium. I've got agencies who are recruiting venture capital. One of them has over $200 million in venture. Another agency with 30 stores, another agency that's franchising, another agency that has kind of a combo hybrid tech and brick and mortar. But I've got agencies who just want to get to the next level. My biggest criteria is do you want to build a world-class business? And so for example, I've got a client who now that's actually second generation. I had the first generation, and we helped them grow 5-fold, 523%. I think the last time we did the math. Now I've got the second generation, and she's going, oh, well, now I want to scale it again. How do I do that? And so we're exploring models on how she can scale that. So, and that's an agency that's got less than $2 million in premium. They started out really small, in a rural area when I was working with them, and now they're in 39 states or something like that. And, and now we have another generation that, boom, I want to get to the next level. I want to build something that's really meaningful and world-class. I want to win, right? And so my biggest criteria are, I want them to be people who really want to build a world-class business, who like the, a little bit of the competitive flavor of being a winner. That helps. But they want to have an impact. And so for me, size is less relevant. I've got some members of this group who are smaller, but doing some of the more interesting stuff. And so really hopeful about their future. I predict scaling. So those are the things that matter the most to me. And people who, again, at this stage in my life, I'm not looking for people whose ego is so big it needs to be stroked. No, I'm willing to put mine outside the door, and hopefully they'll leave theirs outside the door too.
Absolutely. So how do people get a hold of you if they want to look into further?
Yeah, easiest way, email me. Easiest way, email me, and I'll put a little marketing kit together. I didn't really think about this until we just started this conversation. I'll put a little kit. I'll put in my 40% growth book, which is the content marketing. Basically, it's the workshop that I delivered to Mark in Wisconsin 4 years ago. And so, boom, I'll do that. I'll give you a link to my newsletter. I'll give a link to, so you can get more information about the mastermind group. Email me at michael@michaeljans.com.
That's awesome.
That's
Michael,
it.
thank you so much. This has been a wealth of knowledge for our listeners. I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Abe, it's been a blast.
Thanks.
And I appreciate what you're doing for the industry. I appreciate you reaching out and sharing information and bringing people on that might help people. So congrats to you too. You bet.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bet.